Everything always begins in the same way. She looks at you, not at your appearance, but as the person she imagines you could become. You feel it in her eyes, don't you? A glimmer of hope, or perhaps a subtle hunger? You think you are being seen, being chosen, but in reality, that is not the case. You are being measured, evaluated, scanned like a pristine white canvas, waiting for her to paint her own masterpiece. But that masterpiece is not you. It never was you. And Carl Jung, he warned you about this. Not with the gentle words of an inspiring speaker, but with the sharp precision of a man who spent his entire life staring into the psychological abyss of the human soul. Jung dedicated his whole life to mapping what he called the unconscious, the part of the human mind that operates quietly beneath your awareness. And in that journey, he uncovered a terrifying truth about women. They do not just love men. They love the idea of men, with imagination, with projection. And the scariest part is that most of them don't even realize they are doing it. You may believe that she is choosing you, but what she is really choosing is the version of you that she has created in her mind, a psychological puppet that exists solely to play a role in her own movie. And when you stop fitting into that script, she will change the actor, not the story. Jung called the masculine projection that exists within every woman the animus. And when that animus is immature, undeveloped, or uncontrolled, it becomes a tyrant. An invisible force that drives women to pursue dangerous men and reject good men, causing them to argue irrationally, dominate without wisdom, and have morality without responsibility. Jung described this as a spiritual possession, a state in which the woman no longer realizes that she is no longer acting according to her own consciousness, but rather from the faint grip of the masculine imagination within her. And men, you fall into this trap because no one teaches you how to recognize it. You confuse being desired with being known. You confuse being chosen with being understood. You believe her when she says you are different, while in reality, you are just the latest face she has chosen to fulfill a role she has rehearsed since childhood. When the illusion collapses, when the mask falls away, you feel confused, betrayed, and humiliated, wondering what you did wrong. But you did nothing wrong. You simply stopped being a convincing actor in someone else's play. Jung warned that the only way to escape this psychological theater is through what he called individuation, a lifelong process of becoming whole within yourself. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men never begin that journey. You have been trained to seek approval, to look for validation, to let women define your worth. As long as you continue to do so, you will keep playing the same role over and over, being replaced whenever the audience grows bored. Individuation is not glamorous. It is brutal. It requires you to face the parts of yourself that you have buried, the weak, the insecure, the broken. It demands that you stop blaming women for not seeing you and start seeing yourself. Because this is what Jung knew that most men will never understand. You do not become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. You do not earn your worth through her affection. You earn it by standing alone, fully awake, fully responsible, fully alive. A man has faced his own unconsciousness, unable to be seduced by projection. He is no longer a puppet in the imagination of others. He is the author of his own reality. Jung observed that the greatest tragedy of modern men is not that they are rejected, but that they are willing to mold themselves into any shape they believe will be accepted. You call it compromise, you call it cooperation, you call it love. But Jung called it by another name, self-betrayal. He warned that men who ignore their own psychological development will become slaves to the projections of women, bending themselves like wet clay into shapes that women do not even know their true desires require. You are no longer a man. You begin to become a mask, smiling, nodding, agreeing, performing, until you forget who you were before you put on that mask. And women, they sense this. Oh, they sense much more than you can imagine. What you think will make her love you, obedience, predictability, the willingness to be the right fit, is precisely what causes her to lose attraction. Why? Because feminine instinct, Jung taught, is not attracted to comfort. It is attracted to mystery, to risk, to the man she cannot fully define or control. The moment you make yourself completely known, with no boundaries, no backbone, you do not become more lovable. You become invisible, disposable, replaceable. However, this is the paradox that makes most men slaves. You fear loneliness more than you fear being inauthentic. You would rather lose yourself than lose her. You would rather live in a role than face the fear of standing without applause. But Jung taught that until a man accepts that loneliness, he will never be free. He wrote that individuation is not a path for the faint of heart, because it requires you to die before you die. To let the false versions of yourself burn away so that something real can finally emerge. But let me tell you something that no one wants to say. Individuation is loneliness, terrible loneliness. Because when you walk that path, you begin to see things you cannot unsee. You start to recognize the games people play, the masks they wear, the lies they tell themselves just to feel safe. And when you try to share what you see, they mock you. They call you cold, arrogant, too serious. They accuse you of being the problem, but you are not the problem. You are the mirror. And people hate the mirror when it shows them something they do not want to face. Jung knew this well. He spent decades studying patients who feared facing their own shadow, the dark, rejected parts of their psyche that they refused to acknowledge. And Jung warned that women are often raised in cultures that reward them for avoiding that confrontation. They are told that they are pure, emotional, intuitive, and complete as they are. But Jung did not believe that. He wrote that the greatest danger for women is their unconscious nature. The voice inside them speaks with false certainty, false authority, and false moral superiority. He warned that if a woman does not confront and integrate this inner masculine power, her animus, she will become a prisoner of it, blaming every man she meets, blaming them for the very struggle she refuses to fight within herself. And here you think you are her savior, thinking you will be the exception, believing that if you just love her enough, prove yourself big enough, show enough, she will ultimately choose you for you. But that is not how projection works. Jung taught that projection is a thief. It steals reality and replaces it with illusion. Until both men and women awaken from that illusion, they will have to repeat the same tragedy over and over again. Each person blames the other, never realizing that both are dancing with shadows. And this is the greatest irony. The woman who once saw you as her hero will one day see you as her enemy. Not because you have changed, but because you have failed to fulfill the fantasy she placed upon you. And she won't even realize she is doing it. Jung called this psychological betrayal inevitable when neither side takes responsibility for their own inner world. You did not lie to her. You did not betray her. You simply disappointed the invisible character she created in her subconscious. From the very beginning, you were never him. And that is why she hates you. Not because of your flaws, but because you did not live up to the myth she never told you that you were hired to play. Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And nowhere is this more true than in romantic relationships. Both men and women enter them not as whole individuals, but as walking projections, dragging along unmet fears, unfulfilled needs, and unresolved childhood wounds into the arms of another person they barely understand. You call it love. Jung calls it possession. And like a man under a spell, you keep stepping into the trap, thinking this time will be different. But it never is, because you have yet to ask the scariest question a man can ask himself. What if I am responsible for this pattern? You want to blame women. You want to call them manipulative, deceitful, shallow. But Jung would look you in the eye and ask, and why did you let that woman choose you in the first place? You see, a man who refuses to face his own feminine inner world will become a slave to hers. You are not a victim. You are a volunteer. You chose to play the fool. You chose to become an actor in her own mythological story. Because facing the emptiness of your own self, the lack of your own wholeness, is far scarier than playing a role in someone else's fantasy. And this is where most of you will stop listening. For this is where comfort ends and responsibility begins. Jung does not offer cheap solutions. He does not give you 3 steps to become a real man. He hands you the brutal, lifelong task of self-confrontation, sitting alone in the silence of your mind until the illusions begin to shatter, until the voice in your head that says you are nothing without her begins to die. And make no mistake, that voice will fight for its life. It will tell you that you need her. that you are not whole without her, that no man can live without the validation of a woman. But Jung's work whispers something far more dangerous. It whispers that a man can stand firm without her. Unapproved, unwelcomed, unneeded is the man who has finally been set free. Free from projection, free from performance, free from the tyranny of living as someone else's idea of a man. And when you reach that place, you do not become cold or distant, you become real. You become rooted, solid, fully alive in your own skin. And that is when women will feel most attracted to you. Not because you need them, but because you don't. And you will smile not because you are indifferent, but because you have finally understood. You understand that she is also on her own journey, that she has to face the hatred within herself, that she must awaken from her own illusions. And you cannot do that for her. You cannot save her from herself. You can only do what Jung did. You can walk your own path so fearlessly that you become a living mirror reflecting the truth for all those who dare to look. Most will turn away, but a rare few, a select few, will thank you for it. And that, my friend, is the difference between being loved for the role you play and being respected for the man you have become. When that moment comes, when you finally realize that you no longer need to perform, you will begin to notice something strange. How uncomfortable people become in your presence. They will feel it, even if they cannot name it. The weight of your presence will confuse them because you no longer fit into the predictable categories they used to feel safe. Jung warned that the exceptional man is not welcomed by society. He is feared, misunderstood, labeled as distant or arrogant. But the truth is far scarier. You simply become invulnerable, untrustworthy, unmanipulatable because you see through the game. And here is where it gets amusing. Those who once begged for your attention, your validation, your approval, will begin to resent you for not needing their attention. Women, especially those still obsessed with the fantasy of the perfect man, will accuse you of being emotionally unavailable. They will say you are too much in your head, too analytical, too distant. But what they really mean is that they can no longer control you. You have stepped off the stage. You have stopped reading their script. And without that script, they don't know what to do with you, because you have stopped being a character and started becoming a man. Jung once joked that the gods have become diseases. That is what ancient cultures called divine possession. Modern psychology calls neurosis. And make no mistake, men who seek validation are the most spiritually sick. You think you are being romantic when you say things like, "I would do anything for her," or "she is my everything." But Jung would shake his head and tell you that what you call love is actually a refusal to carry your own soul. It would be easier to blame a woman and make her the bearer of your hopes, your meaning, your purpose. Because if she carries it, you don't have to. But here is the brutal truth. When she realizes that she was never designed to carry your soul, she will drop it. She has to drop it because no woman, no matter how loving, can bear the weight of a man who refuses to hold himself. And when she drops it, you will feel betrayed. But you shouldn't. You should thank her because in that moment, when the illusion collapses, you finally face the truth that the work of becoming a man was never hers. It has always been yours. And in that raw moment of clarity, you have two choices. You can blame her, become bitter, join the ranks of angry men pointing fingers at women, or you can do what Jung asks of you, turn inward. You can begin the lonely, terrifying work of personalizing, of becoming whole without needing anyone else to complete you. Because the truth is, the woman you are seeking out there, she is a reflection of the part of you that you have abandoned. Until you face that part, every relationship will be a performance. Every connection is a transaction. Every love is a lie. But when you confront it, when you integrate your inner feminine nature, you become a man who no longer needs to pursue women. You do not chase them. You do not manipulate them. You do not perform for them. You stand still, fully rooted in who you are. And from that place, a miracle happens. You no longer attract women who want a character. You attract women who want the truth, and you will know it when it happens, because she will not demand that you perform. She will not try to change your script. She will not love the illusion of you. She will stand before you, raw and real, not as a goddess seeking worship, but as a human ready to walk her own path alongside you. No masks, no reflections, no games. And when you meet her, her true self, not the imagined version, you will see the difference immediately. She will not overwhelm you with grand statements. She will not treat you like a missing piece in her puzzle. She will not seduce you with polished language, because she is not seeking perfection. She is not looking for salvation. She has done the work. She has met her shadow. She has faced her own hostile nature. She has burned away her own illusions. And that is why she will not need you to perform. She will not need you to carry her soul. She will stand there, whole, looking you straight in the eye. Not as a man she wants to shape, but as a man she is finally ready to meet. And in that encounter, there is no desperation, no clinging, no performance, just truth. And that truth, Jung teaches, is the rarest and most dangerous kind of love. The kind of love that demands nothing but gives everything, because it is not born from need, it is born from freedom. The freedom to choose, the freedom to walk away, the freedom to stand together without illusion, without masks, without fear. But let me warn you, most of you will never experience this, because most of you will give up before you get there. You will settle for performance. You will settle for imagination. You will settle for the temporary thrill of being seen as someone you are not, because facing your true self remains unbearable. But if you have the courage, the brutal, painful courage to keep walking, to keep standing alone, to keep peeling away every false layer you have built to gain approval, you will eventually find yourself standing on the edge of something beautifully terrifying. You will find yourself, and when you do, women will no longer be the source of your identity. They will no longer be the mirror you use to feel like a man. They will become something entirely different. Partners, not prizes. Mirrors, not mothers. Allies, not saviors. And you will love them not because you need them, but because you choose to. From a place of strength, from a place of wholeness, from a place that knows who you are without apology. Carl Jung did not leave you a map to follow. He left you a warning. A warning that every man who refuses to face himself will become a slave to the projections of others, especially the projections of women. But he also left you a challenge to walk the path of individuation, to stop blaming women for the roles you willingly take on, to stop seeking wholeness in the eyes of others, to stop waiting to be chosen. Because the man who fully, unapologetically, and unceasingly chooses himself is the man who cannot be controlled by imagination. He cannot be seduced by performance. He cannot be reduced to a character in someone else's script. He becomes the author of his own life. And if you have come this far, if you feel this message resonates deep within you, do not just skim past it. Do not let this be another thing you consume and forget.